The Veil. Eden Was Just the Beginning by Christophe Michaels. Book preview. Prologue. The War Behind the Word. The room is silent save for the soft hum of air conditioning and the faint rustle of ancient pages. It's 3:47 a.m., that peculiar hour when the veil between truth and deception grows thinnest. I've been awake for 36 hours straight, tracing patterns through millennia of spiritual manipulation. What began as research has become revelation. What started as analysis has transformed into prophecy. You hold in your hands not merely a book, but a decoding key, one that will permanently alter how you perceive every biblical narrative you've encountered since childhood. This isn't speculation, it isn't theory. It's the documentation of the most sophisticated psychological and spiritual warfare campaign ever waged against humanity, hidden in plain sight within the very texts we consider sacred. Let me be absolutely clear. This work does not question the divine inspiration of Scripture. Rather, it unveils the war that has been waged around, through, and against God's communication with humanity since the first words were spoken in Eden. The Bible is not merely a collection of spiritual truths. It is also the battlefield report from a cosmic conflict most believers have sensed, but few have systematically decoded. For every divine instruction, there was an enemy tactic devised to corrupt, confuse, delay, or destroy. For every prophetic voice, there was a counter-narrative designed to silence, discredit, or distort. For every movement of God, there was a system of opposition, constructed to absorb, redirect, or neutralize. I have spent decades excavating these patterns from history's dust. I've examined obscure manuscripts in forgotten languages. I've decoded linguistic anomalies across ancient texts. I've mapped psychological operations spanning centuries. The evidence forms a tapestry too precise to be coincidental, too consistent to be random, too sophisticated to be human in origin. What emerges is not chaos, but choreography, a meticulously orchestrated campaign targeting those entrusted with divine purpose. Eve wasn't simply tempted by a serpent. She was the focus of the first documented psychological operation in human history, one that exploited epistemic vulnerability through weaponized questioning. Abraham wasn't merely impatient with God's timing. He was subjected to chronological manipulation designed to create an alternate fulfillment pathway that would generate centuries of conflict. David's moral failure with Bathsheba wasn't just lust. It was a precision-targeted compromise operation aimed at the weakest point in his character architecture, timed exactly when his presence was removed from his divine assignment. Moses didn't just struggle with speech. He was systematically conditioned to identify with inadequacy rather than authorization, nearly nullifying his world-altering calling. These weren't isolated moral failings of flawed individuals. They were successful tactical operations in an ongoing strategic campaign. The Bible documents not just humanity's journey with God, but the systematic effort to derail that journey at every critical juncture. Each biblical narrative contains not just the surface story we've memorized, but encrypted within it, a playbook of manipulation so sophisticated that it could only originate from beyond human intelligence. This book will walk you systematically through Scripture, extracting from each biblical account the precise deception tactics deployed against God's people, God's plan, and God's messengers. You will never read these familiar stories the same way again. Some readers will dismiss this work as conspiracy theory. That reaction is anticipated and, indeed, part of the very pattern this book exposes. The most effective deception is that which convinces you it doesn't exist. The most dangerous manipulation is that which trains you to mock the possibility of its presence. Others will recognize in these pages the articulation of what they've intuitively sensed, but could never fully formulate. The recognition that beneath the textual surface of Scripture lies an operational blueprint of spiritual warfare that continues to execute in our present moment with devastating precision. Why does spiritual growth feel like navigating a minefield? Why do those called to significant purpose often implode just before their moment of greatest impact? Why do religious institutions inevitably drift from liberation to control? Why do revivals consistently fail to sustain beyond a generation? What if these aren't random spiritual phenomena, but predictable outcomes of tactical operations that have been refined over thousands of years? I must warn you, this text cannot be unread. The patterns, once seen, cannot be unseen. Your relationship with Scripture will be irrevocably altered. Your understanding of spiritual resistance will be permanently recalibrated. Your perception of human history will undergo radical revision. This knowledge is dangerous precisely because it's true. It exposes not just what happened in ancient history, but what is happening in your life, your church, your relationships, and your ministry at this very moment. The same playbook that was deployed in Eden continues to execute with devastating efficiency in your daily existence. The veil is thinning. Those with eyes to see can now recognize the warfare that has been hidden behind familiar Sunday school stories. Eden was just the beginning. The tactics have evolved, but the objective remains unchanged. Delay the promise, corrupt the messenger, confuse the message. This book does not offer simple solutions or tidy resolutions. It does something far more valuable. It makes visible what was designed to remain invisible. It gives language to what was meant to remain inexpressible. It maps what was intended to appear as wilderness. In the pages that follow, you will learn to recognize the fingerprints of manipulation across every biblical narrative. You will develop pattern recognition capability that transcends specific examples. You will gain tactical awareness that transfers from ancient contexts to contemporary challenges. The manipulation is ancient, so is the resistance. The deception is sophisticated, but so is discernment. Are you prepared to see through the veil? Turn the page. Eden awaits. But this time, you'll witness what Eve couldn't see.